committee meeting. I'm Councillor Paul Dick, the Vice Chairman of the committee, standing in for Councillor Jeremy Cottam. I am supported today by members of the committee who are Councillors Phil Barnett, Billy Drummond, Nigel Foote, Paul Kander, Tom McCann, Jane Langford, Stephanie Stevenson, and Clive Taylor. Mrs. Julia O'Brien, Mr. Mark Groves, and Mrs. Moira Fraser are the officers who will be advising the meeting. Mr. Ben Ryan is in attendance as the clerk of the committee, and the Zoom host is Thomas Radbourne. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube so members of the public are able to follow the proceedings. Please can I ask everyone present in the meeting to make sure when speaking to be loud and clear so that those at home can hear you. Can I also ask you to make sure you've put your mobile phones to silent and have turned the sound off on your tablets. If we hear the evacuation alarm this afternoon, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safe emergency exit route, which will be shown to us by the officers. Please follow any instructions given by the officers. The assembly point is the Dolphin Car Park. Anyone requiring help will be assisted by the same officers. Do members have any questions about the way in which the meeting will be conducted before we proceed? Thank you, colleagues. We have received apologies from Jeremy Cottam and David Marsh. And shall we add Councillor Martha Vickers to that? It possibly could be for late arrival. Yeah? Is that okay? Okay. Item 2. Move that the minutes of the meeting of the Licensing Committee held on January 20th, 2025 be signed as a correct record. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Is everyone happy that these minutes are accurate, those of us who were there? Could we have a show of... Sorry, have you got a comment, Councillor Foote? You were waving at me. That's nice. Thank you for that. Can we have a show of hands to say that they can be signed? You've practiced that beautifully. Thank you very much. That they can so be signed. I now move that the minutes of the Licensing Committee on the 17th of March be signed as a true record. May I have a seconder for that? Councillor Drummond, thank you very much. Is everyone happy, that's people who were there, that these minutes are accurate? May I therefore have a show of hands? Thank you, that's everyone who... There's abstention from Councillor Kander because he wasn't there. Yeah, thank you. We move on now to the 15th of May, yes? I move that the minutes of the meeting of the 15th of May be signed as a correct record. May I have a seconder for those? Councillor Kander, thank you very much. Welcome, Councillor. That's you're forgiven. Is everyone happy with the minutes on the 15th of May? May I therefore have a show of hands, please? Any abstentions? So, Councillor Stevenson, because she wasn't with us. So I'll sign the copies when they appear. Thank you very much. We're now on item 3, which is declarations of interest. I believe that nothing has been declared in advance of the meeting, but has anyone moved to say anything at this point? That's a nil return. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, I'm just going to say something as the chair of this meeting, and that is to do with the taxi policy, which you'll have noticed is not on the agenda and not in the pack. And this is not the first time. I think the only thing I can say is on behalf of members is an unreserved apology to members of that service, that is the taxi drivers, because it's pretty inexcusable that we're not ready, but we are not. We are now very lucky to have the portfolio holder on this committee who assures me that in 24 hours we'll all be told of a date for a special meeting to look at that policy, because it's time that we did, and it will be either, I believe, the 1st or 2nd of September. Thank you, Councillor. So again, there's no point in saying anything. We're not ready. A grovelling apology. We move on to the things that are ready. And I would expect in the future that nobody in this seat will have to say anything like that again. I'm confident about that. Okay, item 4 is the annual report. And on my left is Julia O'Brien, who's going to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. So we were asked by members a few years ago to produce an annual report to allow members who don't necessarily sit on some of the meetings and the hearings that we have to get an overview of what the licensing team do. And as you'll tell now from the fairly extensive number of pages that we've got on the report, we do quite a lot. So I don't propose to go through in any detail what's in the content of the report, as I'm sure members have read it with interest, but it gives you a lot of figures of the numbers of licences that we have, and also permits and notices that we receive. It gives you details of the governance arrangements of committee meetings, subcommittees that are held by you on the Licensing Act. It also talks about some of the horizon scanning for things that are coming up in the next year or so, which could have quite an impact on the work of the licensing team as well as the other teams in the Public Protection Partnership. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but I hope you found the interesting reading.
Just 1 second. Is there any, before we open it to questions, is there anything particular that you think councillors should note? Yes or no?
Possibly the one of the main things was the EV subsidy that the councillors agreed 3 years ago that will be coming to an end next year, which they mainly want to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, members, this is an opportunity for you to make comment, discuss the report. Who would like to say something about this? Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. My first comment is really very general. I'm referring to page 21 in the report. I think, yes, 21. We are told there about when a business or an activity requires a licence. And so my question is, how are we certain that we have captured all those businesses and activities within West Berkshire that ought to be licensed or ought to hold a consent, notice, permit? Seems to me that it's a huge job to ensure that every activity within our large range and community is brought to the attention of our licensing department. And I looked at some of the examples we were given, like animal breeding, animal boarding, street trading, charitable collections, dermal license for cosmetic piercing. So, how are we sure? Are we relying on the goodwill of all the people who require a licence to bring themselves to our attention? We're not a police force. Although I notice we are working with Thames Valley Police. And I think my comment is the whole setup requires a great deal of cooperation with Thames Valley Police. But have you got a general comment to make about that, please?
Mr. Bryan.
Thank you, Chairman. I will also defer to my lead officer in the enforcement section of our team, but certainly there is a large element of trust for licensees that come to us and ask for advice on whether they need a licence or whether they don't need a licence. We supply a huge amount of information on our website to help them in that respect. We also have a team of enforcement officers who are going out and about on a daily, weekly, nightly basis, where they go and inspect for known licensee premises and activities, and also for ones that aren't. So we're looking for activities that may not be licensed and should be licensed. We, as you say, we do work closely with the Thames Valley Police, the fire authorities, also other teams within our own service, like the food teams, the environmental quality team, to see if there is something that is going on that, that potentially should have licensed or a license for the activity. So there's a sort of a whole host of ways that we try and ensure things are licensed if they should be. Mark, would you have anything else to add on that?
Mr. Groves.
Thank you very much, Chair. In relation to that, we are currently working with the Immigration Service in relation to illegal immigrants working with West Berkshire. And we're also carrying out operations with Thames Valley Police around the Thatcham, Hungerford areas in relation to licensed premises and activity that shouldn't be going on when it's not licensed. So we're working very closely with third parties and outside areas.
Well, thank you. Councillor Stevenson, are you satisfied with that? Oh, sorry, there's something more. Ms. Fraser.
So, Chairman, and also just to say that clearly we rely on our ward members. If they ever come with any feedback to us, we do appreciate that. The parish councils as well. Our residents, we do get reports from residents asking us whether places are licensed or not. And we regularly put out communication seeking people to notify us. For example, there's a big campaign we have at the moment about underage sales. And we report back each time we have an operation and encourage people to notify us if they are aware of any problem areas as well.
Are you content with that, Councillor?
Thank you very much.
Follow that question up, because it is a very good question, isn't it? And obviously there are sample buying and all that kind of thing that goes on. But how many times, how often do you discover major operations which should have been licensed and aren't? How often does that happen? Roughly.
Mark, you may have some actual figures. I can't think of huge numbers.
Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly?
Certainly not daily.
Certainly not daily, but it's one of those ones where it's been in the right place at the right time, Councillor. Sometimes you get...
Put a number on it, please.
I couldn't give you a number. I don't know.
Numbers exist. No, I'm not having that. No, come on. Is it on average once a month?
I'd say
12?
Once a month, yeah.
As few as that, given the scale of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Foe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Through you, could I ask Mr. Groves, you mentioned earlier about illegal immigration, and I just wondered if you could clarify to the committee what exactly you meant by that. Are you, for example, looking at people that are working illegally in nail bars or, being exploited? Could you perhaps elaborate on that for us, please?
Mr. Groves.
We work with the Immigration Service or the Home Borders Force team who come around. They invite us along, having obtained intelligence on various premises within West Berkshire. Could range from restaurants where there's people who haven't got the right to work, nail bars, other car washes, for example. So everywhere where people don't have a right to work, we then go and tackle those with the Immigration Service. And if they're supposed to be licensed, then we look at that side of things as well, because there is a process where that if for example, a licensed premises employs people who haven't got the right to work, then there could be a review brought against their license, for which it could be revoked by councillors in the process.
Are you content?
If I may, Chair, just
You
one
may.
follow-up, please. Thank you. It's just to say that, I mean, what's your position with regards to people that are running these premises? Because clearly it's not always the fault of the individuals that are picked up because they're illegal immigrants, but people are actually using their labour. So could you elaborate on what happens to the owners of the premises, please? Thank you.
The owners of those premises are dealt with by the Home Office and the Border Forces Agency, because there are fines in place for those individuals, and they can end up in prison as well. And I think from reading the latest report from the Home Office, one person was fined £360,000 for having illegal immigrants working for him. So they are on top of it, and they are working extremely hard.
If it helps, Councillor, people charged with such things regularly appear in the criminal court in Reading. I happen to know. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I do understand that you may not be able to have numbers at your fingertips. But perhaps you could provide members with the information later. Do you know how many people have actually, through your investigations through illegal immigrants, have actually been identified as that, and therefore they're in the process of doing whatever the government needs to do with them? And the second thing is it this council's policy, if we find a business within our area acting in such a way, that we let the public know and put it out there as a business that actually is using this? Do we do that or not? Because I wouldn't have thought there's anything to stop us.
Mr. Groves?
In relation to the number of people that are dealt with, those are figures that are held by the Home Office, and they don't supply those to us due to the sensitivity of those natures. In relation to premises that we do find, reviews are brought before them, which they go before the committee, which would either be made public or not, depending on the nature of the review itself.
Councillor?
Sorry, I didn't understand the last part of the question. Could you just repeat that for me? Thank you.
So some hearings in relation to licensed premises, some are held in public and some are not, depending on the nature of the hearing itself. So therefore, if it was a public one, then it would be made public. But if the immigration asked for it to be kept in closed court, then it wouldn't be.
Sir?
Thank you. Almost.
Okay, go.
Almost. So those that are found to have committed an offence and it's in the public arena, do we have a policy that says we put on our notice boards, like, for example, West Berkshire business, hairdressers, nail polish, wherever, has been found guilty? Do we publish that information, or is it just if you go to court, you'll find out about it? I don't know what your policies are because I'm quite new to this.
Fraser, you can help us, I think.
I can, Chairman. Any of the cases that are prosecuted in the courts, and there's a finding of somebody being found guilty, we put out a press release, and you would obviously, as the portfolio holder, would see that, Councillor McCann, but we also would put it out on Facebook and all the rest of it as well. So,
you content? Okay, thank you. Next, we have Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Kander.
Yeah, just on that last point, I can remember there being a prosecution, I think, concerning a restaurant in Pangbourne, and that was certainly reported in the press. So I can assure you that I've seen that happen in the past. But my question is on page 18, the underage sales. A couple of questions, really. Firstly, given this is an annual report, but the statistics shown there only cover a 3-month period, I wondered if there was any reason for that. Does it mean, for example, there weren't any checks done in the preceding 9 months? And I also wondered, in general, just looking at if we look at alcohol, there are only 10 visits in total reported in a 3-month period, which seems quite low to me. I wondered, what are our targets for the numbers of checks that are made? I would say, particularly on alcohol. Of course, there's lots of other a number of other categories there as well.
Thank you. Ms. Fraser, it says you.
So the reason that the data comes from from the start of December is that we employed an underage sales officer in December, and obviously she needed a month to get herself sorted out. And
I did read, yeah.
So that's the reason for the data. There were not the same level of number of checks being done before that. And in terms of the numbers of cases, the kind of checks is just the iceberg of it. Obviously, we also do checks across the other authorities that we support under the PPP. So they would go, we'd be doing checks in Bracknell, we do checks in Wokingham as well. So whatever number you see there, you can probably multiply by 3 each time. But the officers, if there is a successful sale, I always never know which way to say that. If the sale,
I thought that wording seemed a bit misleading to me.
So if a purchase takes place, then obviously there's a significant amount of work that goes on behind that as well. So that people will have to be brought in for interviews, case files being prepared, discussions with legal as well. So the actual visits, I think the officers would go out every night and do visits if they could, but we don't have the workforce to then do the follow-up work if there was a sale that was made.
Are you content, Councillor? Okay, it might be worth making a point. Can we try very hard to make sure that anything in these reports is clear and accurate? So, for example, in future, a year's stats on an annual report, just it helps people understand. Councillor Kander.
Hi, so I have a couple of questions. I guess the first one is in terms of repeat offenders, and if we take the example of restaurants, if they're employing illegal immigrants or if we've got lots of underage sales, do we not have the power just to take their licenses away? Because I haven't actually heard that at all.
Officers, who's going to speak to this?
I can take this, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
So the power is via review of the licence. So if it was, for example, either an immigration-led offence or if it's underage sales, the trading standards team would normally bring a review of the licence, although the licensing authority and the licensing team can essentially do that themselves as well. This would then come for a review of the licence, which would come to members, and one of the options is to remove the licence. There are other options within that as well, but that's the ultimate sanction, I suppose, that is available to you.
What's the metric to take it to review? Is it like 3 strikes and you're out and then you go to review, or?
It very much depends on the offence. Who's, for example, in underage sales, who did the selling? So if it was a member of staff that had just started that morning or something, then that potentially would not lead to an immediate review of the licence. If it was the designated premises supervisor who is actually responsible for the sale of alcohol, then that may lead to a review of the licence. And certainly repeat offences would be far more stringent. We would take it far more stringently.
I suspect that's not clear enough for you, is it?
Well,
Yes
so
or
from
no?
my
Yes or no?
Not really. So from my perspective,
No.
I like dealing in blacks and whites, right? It's like if something happens, and granted, if we're talking about underage sales, but if it's the same person 3 times, let's say, or whatever the number is, surely there should be an automatic trigger, because otherwise things never happen and they fall between the cracks.
Well, let me try and help with this. So in the past year, how many times have you put an organisation, a licence holder, in front of a subcommittee with a view to removing their licence?
I'll check with Mark on this and Moira, but I don't believe any. No.
No.
Members, I've only been on licensing for 2 years. Others may have been longer. Does anyone remember this happening? Now, how many years have you served, sir? Does that help?
Well, it helps in 2 ways. Either we're very good in West Berkshire and we never break the law, or things are falling down the cracks. So I guess the jury might be open, but let's leave it there for now. Because I have a follow-up question, which is in terms of things like, because there's a lot of press at the moment about Uber Eats and the like with illegal immigrants doing lots of deliveries and driving and what have you. Are we, the council, responsible for granting licenses to the likes of Uber Eats and Just Eat, etc., in local areas? Because I know they were removed at some point.
Miss?
No.
No.
Okay.
Uber is beyond the council's remit. I happen to know that.
Shame.
But can I just, members, we've just discovered that if there are repeat offenders or serious offenders, we don't routinely bring them in front of members to review their licence. Now, it could be that officers use their powers to add further conditions to the licences, but when we're talking about serious or repeat offenders, they don't appear to be brought in front of us. So either the officers are going to say, we will in future, or they're going to tell us that our licence holders are 100% law abiding. Which is it, madam?
I think it's fair to say it's a mix of the two.
Okay, Ms. Fraser, you were waving or drowning, one of the two?
So it's not necessarily true to say that we haven't brought any cases. There is a case in Thatcham that the members that have been on this committee will recognise there was a store that was a repeat offender and their licence, they were brought to the committee. And unfortunately, what people then tend to do is that they will just transfer the licence to a different licence holder. So those are the kind of things that do happen. And we also have to wait for the people to be prosecuted in the courts. And often it's through the court action that they will be sanctioned rather than the removal of a licence.
Councillor, part 3.
Sorry. I don't understand why we, as the people who are able to give out licenses or not, as the case may be, have to wait for the result of a court case. If we deem them to not be of the quality that they should be in order to hold that license for whatever it is, and presumably it's within our gift to then remove it.
Well, it is, and if they want to appeal that, then they come back to the magistrates' court. But I mean, I'm sensing amongst members a little nervousness about this. I'm a stand-in. Would you, my suggestion would be that we ask the chairman to meet with the key officers and explore this item so we can be confident that we will see serious offenders or repeat offenders in front of a group of members. Is that your wish? Reading the body language. Thank you. So that'll be recorded and we will leave that for Councillor Cottam, something to welcome him back. Is there anything else, questions or comments about this report? Councillor Stevenson, then Councillor Drummond.
Sorry, I've got a couple, in fact. A paragraph came to my notice where it says on page 25, one of the most significant contributory factors to income shortfall is the majority of statutory licensing fees have not been uplifted since 2011, which is amazing, and 2005 for the Licensing Act fees. And we asked the chairman, and he wrote to the Secretary of State to urge her to revisit those fees. I'd just like to ask, have we heard back from the Secretary of State yet, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. No, we haven't. And so we wrote again and we still have nothing. And I don't think we're alone. We're not, we're not the only authority that has written because the fees are woeful.
I think we've heard this before, but can we encourage you to keep writing, please? Because, there's not a vacuum up there, although it sometimes feels like it. With respect to Councillor Taylor, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
You had another point?
Yes, please, if I may. Councillor Drummond, can you wait a moment? In the conclusion on page 38, it states, are also introducing a series of public registers, so premises or persons holding a licence can be identified by all. This sounds to me like a very good idea. May I ask how this decision came about, as I would have thought it was common to have these registers up and public, or is the fact that it is to be public unusual?
Miss.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. There are a number of public registers on other authority websites, indeed. The reasons for why we didn't have a public register in our old database system is fairly historic, and it was deemed that it wasn't the right time to do it. However, we now have a new database system and the public registers will be going on the system in line with many other authorities so that it's very transparent what is licensed and what is licensed for.
Are you content, Councillor?
Thank you. I think that's marvellous.
I think there's one bit of information missing, and that is when.
Yes.
Give us a date, please.
I don't have a date.
We'll make one up then, because
Okay,
it's not a big
okay.
job, is it?
Well, actually, it is quite a big job, but the officer who is dealing with the website and the public registers, unfortunately, is currently on leave. But it's one of the things that I've asked her to do in the appraisal that was just done within 6 months.
6 months?
Hopefully soon.
Well, Councillor Stevenson, are you happy with 6 months?
Yes, because I just think it's a wonderful idea. So if it's only just come to West Berkshire Council's attention that we ought to do it, I think we should give them time to do it properly, Mr. Chair.
Surely you just simply put in the title licence holder into our database and everyone who's got a licence that we've agreed will pop up.
Yeah, we do also need to check the data protection side of the register and what is on the register.
Why is it on the register if it hasn't been checked already?
Well, it's just the information that we have on the register. We need to double check is correct.
All right, but people are getting bored with this. I'm going to move on, but I tell you what, here's a challenge for you. Beat the 6 months, right? Please. And
I've
can
got
we
one
make a
last one.
note? 6 months.
Beat the 6 months.
Any more?
Last one, my last comment is to note that the film licensing seems to be a brand new set of conditions. Yep. Is there any reason why this should appear now and why the authority has obviously been told to take it on?
The film classification policy side of things. Yeah, we didn't have, well, we did have one, didn't we, Moira? We did have a film classification
No, we didn't.
policy. No, we didn't. I thought, okay. So the local authority can be applied to provide a film classification for an unclassified film or a reclassification for it. And to be honest, there hasn't been one until fairly recently. I'd say it's back end of last year, beginning of this year. So in order to do that, we thought we should have a policy, which would make sense. So
Okay,
which is now
thank you.
Now what
So
we've got.
we're catching up. And of course it is the next item, but you're forgiven. Councillor Drummond was next.
Thank you, Chairman. There's page 17, 5.6, the council has contracts in place to deliver charge points on street locations and other suitable locations such as car parks, community areas and taxi ranks, etc. to put in slow or rapid charging points. I couldn't believe anybody would want a slow, rapid point. Do you give them a choice?
A question, who knows?
I don't know the answer. That work's done through the environmental team. So Jenny Graham and them's team, but we can find out for you, Councillor
Yeah,
Drummond.
it just seems a bit stupid.
I don't know why I don't have an electric vehicle and I don't know why
It's
anybody
maybe
wants
cost,
to
I don't
charge
know,
it.
but we will report
There may
back
be
to
a
you,
reason.
sir.
Thank you very much.
We will find out.
Thank you.
Find out. Councillor Barnett, you were twitching.
Is a question I know from the centre.
Brian,
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we've been keeping an eye on this since it came in because it's still unclear as to who will actually be enforcing it. So we are still waiting for that, but we've got things like numbers of premises, you know, what kind of numbers of premises that we will need to reach out to if it's us indeed to do it. But it's coming down to risk assessments and capacities and that kind of thing. So we're still waiting for some more information.
So we're not ready, but we're working on it. Is that it?
Well, we haven't been given clear guidance on who is doing what.
But we are doing something about it.
But yes, we have it in our minds as to the fact it's coming in, and we will be ready if it comes to us.
Perhaps you can pick that up at the next meeting and let us know how that's going. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Vickers.
It's working. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention to something that looks like good news. I think it's page 36, the Community Alcohol Partnership and the 16 Plus programme at Newbury College, where there seems to be a lot of good initiatives around working with young people, Young Health Champions programme, reducing all sorts of unhealthy behaviours, lists them all there. I just wondered, doesn't give any figures, I don't think, although there are some figures in the preceding page, but I don't think they're related to this. I just wondered, it sounds like an excellent programme, and do we have any more information on it? And what's our connection with it? Do we just sort of support it, or do we have an ongoing connection with how the campaign is working?
Thank you. Ms. Fraser, I think.
So we've got an officer within the Public Protection Partnership, not within the licensing team. She's part funded through Public Health and the PBP itself. And Jess does a lot of work. She's the person who won the award and went up to Westminster to receive it. So she does a lot of work with the young people and with the Community Alcohol Partnership itself. So there is a very close connection with them. We work with them on a daily basis. And we've also recently received some additional funding to employ 2 more community engagement officers. And part of that role is obviously going into the schools, primary schools and secondary schools, and doing an education program in West Berkshire. So the PVP sometimes does functions in West Berkshire, sometimes Bracknell, sometimes Wokingham, but this is funded through Public Health in West Berkshire. So it's a service that's sort of dedicated to West Berkshire, not the other.
Thank you. Are you content, councillor? So the work does go on, but it's not directly related to licensing.
Oh, okay. Well, it's in the report.
Well, it's of course
it's related in the sense that it's
Are
encouraging.
you happy with the answer?
More or less, it's encouraging positive behaviours in young people
Sure.
towards the issues that we discuss at this committee.
And certainly I know that presentations are made by trading standards in secondary schools,
Yeah.
particularly to older children. I know that for a fact.
Yes, it sounds like a very positive bit of news, and I just hope it's successful. And it sounds as though it's
Sure.
expanding as well. Thank you.
Members, I feel that this is drawing to a close. Am I correct? Anybody got anything burning they want to say? So we need therefore a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations as on page 13 there. Thank you, sir. Councillor Drummond, a seconder. Someone going to support Councillor Drummond? Yeah. Councillor Stevenson, who is in an anonymous phase today, but we know who she is. So thank you. Can we therefore vote that the committee approves the annual report 24-25 as set out in Appendix A? Please raise your hands if you're happy. And that's unanimous. So that has been carried. Thank you very much. Item 5 is indeed the film classification policy, the much anticipated document. Mr. Groves, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good evening, members. The film classification policy is a new policy of West Berkshire Council drafted in accordance with the requirements of the Licensing Act 2003. This legislation is prospective in nature, and this policy specifically supports the licensing objective of protecting children from harm. It applies solely to films exhibited within the West Berkshire district. Under Section 20 of the Licensing Act 2003, any premises, a licensed club or club premises certificate that authorises the exhibition of films must include a condition requiring the admission of children to be restricted in accordance with the classification issued by either the British Board of Film Classification or the licensing authority itself. In practice, if a premises wishes to show a film that has already been classified by the BBFC and they are licensed for film exhibition, there is no requirement for the council to classify the film. However, if a film has not been classified by the BBFC, the premises must apply to the council for a classification before it can be shown in order to comply with the mandatory licence condition. Section 182 National Guidance under the Act advises that licensing authorities should not duplicate the BBFC's work by choosing to classify films themselves. The classifications recommended by the BBFC should be those normally applied unless there are very good local reasons for a licensing authority to adopt this role. The guidance also notes that licensing authorities may specify the BBFC in the license or certificate and in relation to individual films. May notify the license holder that the authority will make a recommendation for that particular film. However, such instances should be exceptional. While it's possible for someone to request that the council reclassify a BBFC film, this would be unusual and the national guidance discourages such duplication. Historically, requests for film classifications have been very rare. In fact, we've only received one request last year, and colleagues cannot recall any others in recent years. However, with the rise of independent filmmaking and digital distribution, we may see an increase in such requests in the future. West Berkshire Council does not routinely classify films. Classification will only be undertaken in the following circumstances. The film has not been classified by the BBFC, so it's example, it's an independent or locally produced film. A request is made to reclassify a BBFC unrated film for a specific local showing. Such requests are very rare and discouraged by national guidance. Applicants are encouraged to submit films in DVD format to avoid delays. If not, DVD is not possible, the council accepts USB sticks or other formats by arrangement. Films are typically viewed on a standard laptop and no specialist software is required. All requests must be accompanied by detailed reasons for the classification request. If a DVD format is not possible, applicants should contact the licensing authority to discuss alternative submission methods. This policy only applies to films shown in licensed venues, including premises with a premise license, club premises, civics, or events operating under a temporary event notice. Exhibitions of films is defined as regulated entertainment under the Licensing Act of 2003. The council does not receive early releases of commercial films and does not operate a cinema, according to newspaper reports today. Classification requests are very rare. Only one was received last year. With the rise of independent filmmaking and an increase in requests may recur. This policy has therefore been drafted to provide a clear and consistent framework for handling such applications, and we are asking members to consider and adopt it this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a impassioned speech, sir. So you've heard this is really just in case. We don't expect to use it, but we need to have it. Members, who wants to remark upon this document? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, if something like, I think like The Life of Brian came out in the 80s, and there was people protesting up and down the street in London and indeed other parts of the country, and things like that, where people take a religious view against another type of movie. Would this authority that we're about to devolve mean that members would have no input in that? Or would it be purely a decision for officers? It's because to disconnect members from that, which could sometimes be very important to be connected and reflect. Thank you.
Yeah, our job is to represent the local community, yeah. Miss, what say you?
So, Councillor McCann, just to say, so those kind of movies, we wouldn't probably ever get a chance to classify them. The only reason would be perhaps if we had like a film festival and somebody asked for a reclassification of a movie or whatever. The officers would do the initial work. It's based on a framework that's the British Broadcasting Company puts up. And that's the kind of criteria that's assessed against. If the filmmaker then is not happy with the outcome of that assessment, then they can ask for a review, and the review would be undertaken by the committee, which is the process that we really follow with most of the licenses that we hand out. You know, if a taxi license, when the policy comes in, you know, if a taxi license was withdrawn, they would be able to appeal to the members. At the moment, you know, if we have a licensing application for a premise, you know, and there's objections, then it comes to the committee. But the bulk of the work is operational and would be done by the officers.
Are you content, sir?
That we have an input at some point, absolutely.
You heard that, did you?
Absolutely, that's been
it was buried away in there somewhere. Okay, thank you both. Anyone else? Councillor Kander.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I missed it in the impassioned performance of the report, but what constitutes a film?
Michael Jackson, the film.
As in, if somebody has hired a place that has the ability to share a film, but they're not charging for it, what constitutes a film that we should care about?
There's a good question, officers. Who's rushing to answer that?
No, I don't.
So I'm not sure actually there is a definition of the films in the policy, and if there isn't, we do need to perhaps look at that. But you would only need a license if you were showing it in a licensed premise. So for example, if you made a movie about your school and then you showed it in next week's assembly, that wouldn't require a license, and it wouldn't be required to be assessed because it's not being shown in a licensed premise. But if you were going to show it on a Friday night and charge people, then that would become a different matter.
Well, and that's why I'm asking what constitutes making it a film, because someone could make a film about the school, but because the school didn't want to show it, they could hire somewhere that's allowed to show films.
Perhaps.
And may not even charge money for it. But if it's a definition of having to charge money for it and it being entertainment, is that what constitutes? So I think it would be good for us to understand what constitutes.
I mean, that's quite a good question, because quite often whether money's charged or not can make a difference in law. Can you help us here?
And if it's shown in a licensed premise. So, for example, the recent application that we had in Bracknell was for a chap made a movie about his triathlon journey and then chose to show it in the local cinema. And then it has to be classified because the cinema is a licensed premise.
So just taking that, then if he'd have shown that film in a school hall, he wouldn't have needed classification. That's kind of where I'm getting to. Because obviously if someone wants to make a film that maybe others wouldn't like, then to get around having to have a classification, they may put it somewhere where it isn't a classification-based
Yeah,
place.
potentially it needs to be a licensable activity. So the film has to be a licensable activity. So it's whether people are being charged for it to come and watch it, or if it's on licensed premises, but somebody could have rented a hall and not charging anybody and just invited friends and
that's my
family
point.
to watch it.
So if you take the Life of Brian example, which is now soft by some means compared to what other people could make in terms of those types of films, they could show it somewhere in a school hall, not charge money and not have to have a license, etc.
But they may then be contravening other legislation. So if you're talking about sort of hate speech or something like that.
Well, yeah, but maybe it falls below the line, right? The point I'm making is what constitutes a film and where do we get involved? That's kind of what I'm trying to get to.
Right. Well, I think we could go on forever. What if somebody did X, Y, and Z? But I mean, the definition of a film is maybe sensible, is it? Can you make it up or do you want us to? I mean, that's what it comes down to. I'll come to you, Councillor Langford. It's a question. Ms. Fraser, you were talking, so it's coming to you.
I don't know. There will perhaps be a legal definition, and I think we need to look that up, and we can circulate that with the members prior to any adoption.
Well, should we be happy with this policy, subject to that being sent round by email? Are people happy?
No.
Sorry, say that again, Councillor.
No, I'm not happy.
Well, how can we make you happy?
Well, if you would allow me to speak.
Well, I wanted the
Mr.
officer to
Chair.
finish, but you're on my list and you're now speaking and we're listening.
Good. Then listen up. I think these definitions are very important, especially today where you get Facebook, you get communications of all sorts sent out to vulnerable people, often children, encouraged to commit suicide or show private parts of their bodies. I think the definition of what a film is important. And I think some work on definition needs to be done because we can put a lot of effort into worrying about films when all sorts of other things are falling through the cracks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That's very clearly put. I mean, I suspect what's going to come back is that the things you're talking about are, there's legislation in place for those elsewhere, but.
Having a quick Google, Chairman, and other sources are available.
You could have asked a teacher, but never mind. Go on.
It's and I just need to check whether or not this is in this policy. It says under the Licensing Act 2003, the definition of a film has been expanded to mean any exhibition of moving pictures, including feature films, adverts and trailers. The definition also now covers the showing of video and other visual images and video image media, including non-live digital exhibitions of plays, operas, pop concerts, etc. I think it's a bit of a technical definition, but we can make sure.
I guess that's what we're after, isn't it? I understand. So I mean, Councillor Langford, what you've said is really important issues, but with respect, not covered by what we're talking about today. That is covered elsewhere in legislation. Yes, Miss.
That's maybe the answer, but the trouble is often legislation doesn't, if it's siloed, instead of we look at it as a whole situation, then you could get things falling down the cracks.
I hear that. Can I just go back to my suggestion that we work on a more polished definition of film, and subject to that being circulated and people are happy with it, we might be then in the position to approve this policy today, given that it's once in a blue moon we use it anyway. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I wonder if this has made me think about a project that I've quite recently been involved in. Tarles Parish Council decided, I think it was about 18 months ago, to commission a film. The contract was given to a small company in Reading that specialises in films with young people. And the film was made. Tarles Parish Council paid £2,000 for the film to be made. And it was going to be shown at the Biscuit Factory Cinema in Reading. And there was going to be a small charge, I think, to help cover the costs of the whole project, because I remember speaking to the film company about this. Now, the film eventually was decided to be of not particularly high quality, and it was never shown. And in fact, the £2,000 was refunded to the parish council because of that. But I do wonder, it never occurred to me that this would require possibly require film certification. Would this fall into that category?
Officers? The film that never was it a film? Yes or no?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. There we are. Not directly relevant, but interesting nevertheless. All right. Yeah.
So Chairman, what are you seeking us to then, there is an explanation in the glossary, but we can seek to expand on it.
Does it meet our purposes, do you think?
The current one is very limited. It says, under the Licensing Act, the definition of the exhibition of a film is the exhibition of moving pictures, which is quite limited.
Let's park that for the moment. Councillor Stevenson.
Well, it made me think as well about sitting in various rooms over the past years watching films produced by private individuals. And I focused on page 8 of 9 of this document, which lists the exemptions. Luckily, I found the exemption that applied to me in all the films I've watched, because if you look, it does mention the Licensing Act 2003, but any film or show for any purposes of a museum or an art gallery, they're exempt immediately, so you can do lots of arty things and get away with it. Or you can demonstrate any product, advertise any goods or services, or provide information, education, or instruction. And in the case of the films that I've seen in Newbury, the film is shown on a not-for-profit basis in a community premises between the hours of 8 and 11, and it doesn't exceed 500 people. So, I've seen several over the years in Newbury, some of them in schools, very much educational and not-for-profit.
Okay.
And so I'm okay. I didn't attend films that should have been licensed.
So thank you, Councillor. Your reputation is intact. Is there anybody else got anything burning to say about this document? No. Okay. So we need a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation, which is set out in page 43. I'll read it. The licensing committee is 1, consider the policy and recommend it is adopted subject to any modifications agreed by the committee. And I think we've agreed that we need sight of a definition of what a film is. That's a hard word for me to say, film. It's not a film, is it? No. Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, but we're not going there, are we? Agreed by the committee, so that can be fired round us. And then 2 is recommend to full council that section 1.4 of the scheme of delegation, part 2 of the consultation, be amended to delegate the classification of films under section 20 of the Licensing Act 2003 to officers, as we have discussed. So, how?
Separate, or are you doing them together?
Together.
Right, I propose.
Thank you. Have we got a double seconder?
No.
So, who is the seconder? Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you not consider coming second? Okay. Councillor Kander, all in favour, subject to the one change we've talked about. Anyone against? That's 100%. Thank you. And now the last item is the forward plan. So you can see that it's set out. Obviously, this is a moving target because we've already suggested a couple of things we'd like more information about. But let's go to members first. Any comments or questions about the programme as constituted? speak now? Councillor Kander. I'm
Was it
delighted.
Something we needed to review within 6 months?
Sorry,
Or
I
maybe
did say
that's
we've
it.
already left a couple of things that we
Okay,
want.
fine.
Yeah. Any other comments? Officers, any comments from you? The things that we've said we want information about shouldn't really change that programme, should they? No? Okay, thank you. The date of the next meeting is a special meeting. Ignore what that says. It's either the 1st or 2nd of September. And I think that'll come out within 24 hours, if I'm not much mistaken. So thank you to the portfolio holder for putting his shoulder to the wheel, whatever shape the wheel was. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. Thank you, officers. And I close this meeting formally, sir. Please stay in your seats until Tom twitches.